Hi, everybody. So it's 4:05. So I think we should go ahead and get started. I'll wait for a few people to turn on their cameras to indicate that they're ready. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the October 2023 CAG meeting. As always, thank you for making the time to be here. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Parker.
Great. Thank you so much, Paula. Hi, everyone. So I think that most of you know me by now, but just in case, I'm Parker McClure. I work on the community engagement team with Desiree Gazzo under the PMCM HNTB Lero joint venture. I'm joined by some colleagues from HNTB Lero as well as the DDC today, and I will be presenting an update on ESCR. All right, can everyone see my screen? Cool, great. So this is the 38th CAG meeting. As always, here's an overview of the 3 contracts and project areas. These are the topics we'll go over tonight. We have our quarterly hiring compliance update. So I will first turn it over to, well, I guess this is the outline of the presentation for tonight, but now I'm going to turn it over to Stephen to give an update on hiring compliance.
Hello, good evening. My name is Stephen Anderson. I work for Bowie Studio, and we are part of the PMCM team, working with Parker as well and others, and we do the monitoring for the local hiring, MWBE, as well as the Sandy hiring on the ESCR project. As far as the information that you see in front of you here today, we are hosting our next quarterly information session, which we held next week, Wednesday, from 10 to 1 in the local community. This has been a wonderful collaboration with Goals, good old Lower East Side. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to bringing not only job services, but also training information, as well as other pieces of information that could be beneficial to the community around how to be ready for jobs, especially coming into the season for jobs and for seasonal jobs as well. So also there's a collaboration with Workforce One that we have been doing together. In addition to this event, we've been tabling in the community. Our next one will be coming up, I believe next week, Monday, Parker, if I'm correct. We'll be tabling at Reese houses to promote this event in addition to providing other services. Next slide, please. So here you have the PMCM numbers. There's a total of 200 staff members that are now working on the project, of which, as you know, the contract was based on the proposed team and the qualifications of the existing staff. 41% of the staff now are coming from MWBE subcontractors, with 28% minorities, and the male to female ratio or breakdown, I should say, is at 75 and 25% respectively. This data that you're seeing is as of August 31st. Next slide, please. The general contracting team total is now at 1,683 staff members, with a little over 1,000 working on the project area project area 1, 620 on project area 2. On the PA1 team, they came in with an existing staff of around 58%. And now the total right now of that is 40% are minorities, male to female breakdown at 97 and 98% and 2% respectively. 42% of the general contracting staff are new hires. 6% are on the MWPE contracting team. And as you know, the majority of the new hires are provided through the union labor based on not only availability of their personnel, but also the demand of the general contractor at specific times throughout the project. Similar breakdown for PA2, who came in with 65% existing staff, and around 46% minority. Male to female breakdown is, as you can see, similar at around 97% and 2.6% respectively. And then 35% of that general contracting team were new hires, with 5% working at MWBE companies. And next slide, please. Regarding the current progress towards MWBE goals, we are projecting that we will meet those goals on the PMCM team, both on PA1 and PA2 projects. The goal for PA1 and then for the general contracting team on PA1 is 16%. We are projecting to bypass that by far, as well as the PA2 goals as well. We're projecting to exceed those goals. And as of August, we're at that point where we have, based on payments, we have, exceeded those goals, which is, definitely a triumph. With right now, I believe we're at 75% of the project of PA2. So already exceeding those 12% goals for sure. With regards to the Section 3 hires, there are 6 working on the PMCM team, 9 on the GC team, and 1 on the PA2 GC team. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the residency distribution of staff that's working on the ESCR project across the board, with other at the bottom that pretty much is inclusive of the Westchester, New York, upstate New York area, as well as Pennsylvania and Connecticut. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, we are making every effort to not only bring information into the community about what's happening with the project, but also any type of job opportunities or collaboration, with Workforce One, as well as with goals. We're continuing to work towards providing opportunities in the local area, whether on this project and as well as partnering with and providing information on other DDC projects across the board. Next slide. This is breakdown of our MWE subcontracting goals, higher NYC goals, that is publicly available for anyone who wishes to know. All right, and that's it. Any questions? All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Parker.
Oh, wait, there's a question.
Okay.
From Wendy. Go ahead,
yeah.
Wendy.
Hi,
How
Wendy.
many of the new hires are from the neighborhood?
So as of now, we are still at around three hours are from the neighborhood of the total
These
new
are the
hires.
new hires that you just spoke about?
2 of the new hires were from earlier in the project, and one was, I think the last one we hired was October of 2022.
Oh, so not so many jobs for local people. It's really a shame. And I also want to add that the Department of Cultural Affairs hired outside artists. They could have easily selected artists from this community and instead put that $40,000 into an artist from outside the US. And I just think it's a shame. So that's all I want to say.
Diane?
I'm looking at this last slide here and the Sandy recovery hiring. And so am I understanding this slide right, that Sandy recovery hiring is just one part of section 3?
The Sandy recovery hiring is separate from the goal. It's a separate goal for the ESCR project.
Okay.
which-
Okay.
Yeah.
So the ESCR project has MWBE goals, it has section 3 goals, and it has Sandy recovery hiring goals, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so I think on the, did we see a number for Sandy recovery hiring on your earlier slides when you did the breakdowns?
There wasn't any number specifically for the Sandy recovery hiring
Okay.
shared on the slides.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that to mean that we're not at that 20% goal.
It does not mean that the priority has been for us to, as discussed, which we could have had later. The priority for us has been ensuring that the section 3 hiring and local hiring, which, if we were to look at the zip codes, if we by default were to hire in the Lower East Side, is inclusive of Sandy goals, but we just haven't broken down those numbers.
Okay. But I mean, I think for the most part, if we look at the local hiring numbers, that's going to also reflect the Sandy recovery hiring numbers. I mean,
Right.
I know other parts of the city were impacted, but that would
Right.
give us some insight into that. Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we can move on.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
So this is the usual overview of contract slide. The only new item here, which is very exciting, is that ball fields 1 and 2 are under construction now. That started this month, and I have some photos of the construction a little later. All right, and so now PA1. So here are the current construction activities for project area 1. As I mentioned, ball fields 1 and 2, which are right around here, have the construction for those ball fields has begun. And the only other new thing on this slide from last month is that the Houston Street overpass, at the Houston Street overpass, the pedestrians have been detoured onto the FDR on-ramp to enter the park because the demolition of the North Houston Street ramp has begun as of this month as well. So the typical construction work sequencing slide, as you'll notice, F is now bolded, site elements and materials for the inland portion of the project. This is because they've started constructing the hardscapes around the ball fields and will soon be installing the ball fields. So here is a rendering of the southern portion of the park south of the bridge, just so you remember what the ball fields will eventually look like. As you know, this rendering is a little older, so it doesn't have the updated canopy for the amphitheater, but this is just an overview of that part of the park that they're starting to do some of these finishings on. So here, is the construction of the curb for the ball fields. So this is sort of at the bottom of the southern baseball diamond. If you look back at this is right around here. And so you can see sort of an overview of where they're going. And then on the right is the actual mold for the curb itself and the concrete that is going to be poured. So moving towards the water, here is some combi wall pictures with rebar. The one on the left is a photo of the southern embayment, so that's why it's sort of curved there. And then the one on the right is just a normal stretch of combi wall with the rebar, so soon to be poured concrete. Here we have some pictures of the abutments for the Corlears Hook Bridge, which are coming along very nice. So the one on the left is the Corlears Hook Park side, although taken from the.
1300块钱，还是跑进去了，70%的话，然后存期的话，
I think someone needs.
Everyone appears to be muted, so I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out where that's coming from, but please mute if you can.
Okay. All right. Can everyone hear me okay? Cool.
Yes.
Thank you. So as I was saying, yes, here are the Corlears Hook Park, or the Corlears Hook Bridge abutments. You can see in the one of the Corlears Hook Park, they're starting to fill around the abutment, which is exciting. And then here is the pedestrian detour at Houston Street that I mentioned earlier. So pedestrians have been directed down the on-ramp. There's a jersey wall between the cars and the pedestrians. This photo shows just inside of the park after entering from Houston Street. You can see that there's asphalt added recently. This is to try and prevent some of the large ponding that we were seeing after rainfall in this area, so that people can still enter the park there. And then this is an image of the I just realized this says South Houston Street ramp. It should be North Houston Street ramp. I'll fix that before sending it to you all after the meeting. But this is the north ramp demolition starting, which necessitated the detour. So some updates on things we've heard. So the ESCR team is scheduling a visit with the Department of Transportation to review the South Street, Montgomery Street intersection. And we are, there's currently a flagger at the intersection and entrance to the construction site, but we know that people have been concerned, so we're going to review it with DOT. So we've received some questions about how drainage in the park works following the rainfall events, understandably. And so the park was designed with many catch basins within the park itself, which are located at low points throughout the park to collect stormwater that is not absorbed either by permeable surfaces, including grass areas, plantings, permeable pavers, or green roofs, or that water that doesn't run into the river. And the grading plan was designed to direct stormwater, rainwater into these low points where the catch basins are, or into the river. We also, I know it came up at the site walkthrough, people had questions about the grading of the park, the grading plan, and how hilly it would be. So just a couple of facts, and then I have another slide on this. The pathways inside of the park are all going to be ADA compliant, meaning that the slope of any incline cannot exceed a 5% slope, which is 1 foot elevation change for 20 feet in distance. So all of the paths within the park are either 5% or less when changing elevation. The esplanade will change in elevation. I know that was a question specifically near the embayments. The esplanade it splits, it goes down in front of where there's seating and then up behind the seating. The changes in elevation along the esplanade are generally more gradual than 5%, but they never exceed the ADA compliant 5% slope. And at the embayments, the elevation change is approximately 6 feet. And I have a rendering of an embayment on the next slide. For hills off of paths, these are, the hills inside of lawns or grassy areas. Those never exceed 33% slope, and that is a 1 foot change in elevation over a 3 foot distance. The majority of the 33% slope hills are located adjacent to the on the west side of the park, either adjacent to the bike lane or the FDR. So that's sort of you're all familiar with this image here. This is what we have on the construction sequencing slide. So here you can see there's like a steeper hill from the park down to the bike lane and FDR here. That's the sort of representation of the 33% slope, while there's more gradual slopes throughout the rest of the park for the most part. And the passive lawns are generally more gradual than a 33% 1 foot elevation change over 3 feet. And then to get a better sense, you can also look at these 2 videos that are linked in the presentation. They are from the 2019 open houses. One is I think the bike through presentation is a little more helpful at visualizing what the hills will look like when you're actually in the park from a person perspective, because the flyover is a little removed. Keep in mind, this was created in June 2019 for an open house prior to the design being finalized in early 2020. So there might be some slight differences to what you're seeing in the final design, but it gives you a good sense of how hilly the park will be. And so here's an example at East Houston Street. So this is a different cross section than the one that you're probably used to seeing, where it shows the entrance at Houston Street that's at grade and a slow decline down to the Esplanade, and then also where the Esplanade starts to split. So it's sort of this purple line shows where this cross section is. And you can see that the high point is where the park entrance is. Most of the high points in the park are at the entrances, so that the crossings you sort of just go into the park at grade. And then here is where you can see the Esplanade changing elevation, splitting, so that at the embayment you can get closer down to the water. And then there's these sort of stacked seats. And then you can also go behind it, which is, this is where the 6 foot elevation change is that I was mentioning. So this is an updated schedule. So things that were previously striped, we've now made solid, and then new changes are in stripes again. I know this is a lot of information, but the main takeaway is that as the construction has been progressing, they've had to alter the schedule and change the sequencing, as we've previously mentioned, due to unforeseen field conditions or construction approach changes. And I'm happy to take some questions about this back if you have them, or if I'll answer what I'm able to. We also have this updated Gantt chart. This has a lot more information, and so there's these yellow lines that you can see, the thin ones under the blue lines. Those are the August 2022 timeline projections, and then the light blue are the new projections and anticipated work. The dark blue is completed work, and there's a lot here, so feel free to direct questions on the details here to Paula and Tara, and then they can forward them along to us, and we can get back to you with more detailed information. So that was a lot. Do you want me to just go through? PA2 and PC are kind of short, but I don't know if you want me to take questions now about PA1.
If you're, yeah, thanks, Parker. If you're okay with that, because Doug raised his hand pretty early in the section, so.
Yeah, I noticed that, so I'm happy to go back.
Great, go ahead, Doug.
Well, my question is more of a statement. I live in East River housing. I'm in the co-ops down on Grand and FDR, and we're part of the building that's right by where the Delancey pedestrian crossing is being worked, where the steel bridges. So if you look on like slide, I think it was page 14 or 15 that had the steel beam, so it's number 2. So they're doing work on Delancey and the service road there, and it's getting a bit dicey by us when we pull out of the parking lot of our Delancey parking lot because of the construction, where it's become a very big of a blind spot there, where sometimes where you're coming out, you can't see what's coming on Delancey, who's coming down at all. And if we could do something about just, working on that, that would be really much appreciated. And I also want to thank you for putting the I think it's called the Gantt chart with all that information. I think it's very useful. And I look forward to seeing it a little bit more later so I could process it. But I really appreciate it, and it really gives us a lot of information.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So I'll bring that back to the team about the Delancey Street work, and if there's anything that can be done to improve.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very responsive when people from the office call about things, but this is guy that it's just you can't pull out. It's a total blind pull out now.
Okay.
So if somebody's pulling in and they're just making a right in, you're pulling out, you can't even see that. Okay. And with all the work, our driveway is already, been squashed a bit, Right. So I don't know if you've been down there or not.
Yeah, I have, but I'll
Okay.
be sure to bring that back, and also make sure that the PMCM walks that area to evaluate it.
Yes, and please keep the Gantt chart in on the meetings, because it's really useful. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't think there are any. Oh, Diane has a question.
Well, I actually have a lot of questions. So should we just dig into PA1 now, or should we hold off until the other updates are done?
PA1 was kind of a lot, so if you want to go into PA1 now, we can do that.
Okay. So my first set of questions is around the work that's being done in the ball fields, fields 1 and 2. Yep. If we can go back there. So does this mean that the soil has the fill has completely settled down there now?
Yes.
Okay.
This location it has.
Yeah. And then so what you reported today is consistent with what we heard at the walkthrough, which is that the initial focus down there is on the ball fields. When we were at the walkthrough, we asked about the esplanade next to those ball fields, the paths around the ball fields, right? So I think in the other picture where you kind of have the aerial view of what it's going to look like down there, you can see that there are concrete paths, or like ringing the area. And then the status of the amphitheater south of the ball fields, and the status of the fireboat house area north of the ball fields. Do you have updates on those? Because at the walkthrough, it sounded like what they were saying was, well, we're going to open these ball fields and you'll be able to get to the ball fields, but there might be surrounding amenities, including the esplanade, which is the most popular amenity in East River Park, would not yet be open. At the, wouldn't open at the same time as the ball fields. I don't think the construction guys promised a specific opening date. So can, if you don't have the clarification on that now, can we get that? Because I think what a concern is that a large chunk of the north end will be closed. But the only replacement for those amenities will be 2 ball fields, and everyone else is going to be out of luck. Right. And so for pedestrians, for, people who run, walk their dogs, whatever, they will actually lose amenities without them being replaced by the new space in the south end.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, I can bring that back. So I know that there, because I don't have exactly dates or approximate timelines for when those things will open. I know that the contractor will, turn over different components of the park as they complete them.
Mhm,
It won't be like the whole area is finished at one time and
mhm.
this whole section. It'll be as they finish pathways and the ball fields and the Esplanade, they'll turn them back as they're ready to be turned back and as Parks is willing to accept them.
Mhm.
But I'll try and get more information and get back to you.
Yeah, that would be great because I understand, from the contractor's point of view about opening it, as things are finished. But when they close things, they don't close things in little bits. They cut off whole chunks of the park. And so I think that would be good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, and then along with that, I think we just have some questions about the rest of the fill, because I believe when we were doing the walkthrough, when we were in the area right south of the bridge, but north of the ball fields, it wasn't clear how much additional time that area would need to settle.
Yeah, so immediately north of the bridge.
No, it's not between, I
So
know
this
that
way.
immediately north of the bridge is behind the others. I mean, the
Right.
area between fields 1 and 2 and the bridge.
Right, where the Delancey Street lawn.
Yep.
will be,
All of that,
uh,
right?
North of the boathouse. Okay. I'm not exactly sure how long after. Let me look back at this. So I think it will be by the end of next year, but they're still evaluating
Okay.
how long it will take. But I'll try and get more information again on that as well.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at the Gantt chart. And then the other question for this area that came up during the walkthrough was that we asked about the topsoil that's going on to support the trees and the plantings. And the answer that we got at the walkthrough was that that topsoil depth would vary between 1 and 2 feet. And we're, a little concerned, I guess, that 2 feet is not going to be enough to support tree growth.
Right.
And as you know, a top priority for the community is the replacement of the shade so that the park is accessible to people who can't, who are vulnerable to temperature, high temperatures and sunlight and things like that, right?
Right.
And so, if you don't have any more information about that today, that's another thing that it would be great to take back and understand better.
Yes. I don't remember it being exactly 1 to 2 feet, but I'll bring that back and get more details about the soil. But you are right that it varies, and I think it also varies what type of soil it is, whether it be for plantings and versus for grass, like horticultural soil. But I'll try to have a more comprehensive answer for you next time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy.
Hi, so I heard that the Department of Homeland Security won't allow the area under the Williamsburg Bridge to be elevated. And I wonder how that affects the storm barrierness of the other parts of the park that are elevated.
So the flood protection under the bridge goes along the Esplanade, which is part of why they're at that part. It's the wall changes from a combi wall to the interlocking cylindrical piles to make it stronger there. I don't know about the Department of Homeland Security, their impact on that, but I can bring that back and ask more.
So essentially you're saying it's all about the Esplanade. It doesn't really have to do with the elevation of the park that's going to protect from.
So that is the flood. So there,
right.
for the rest of the park, there's the combi wall along along the Esplanade is one barrier of protection. And then there's another underground flood wall, but due to constraints with the Williamsburg Bridge there, the bulkhead along the Esplanade is the flood protection and supporting the Esplanade.
So
But
it's
it-
going to be higher there? Is that what it's the area under the bridge essentially will be several feet lower?
So I can look back at the grading plan to have more information about how it's graded under the bridge. But if you'll see the flood wall and elevation and the wall, the bulkhead combi wall are the same height. See the line there?
Huh.
So then I can also bring back there's an overview slide that we've had in previous presentations where you can see the line of flood protection, and there it goes closer to the water to avoid the bridge.
Part of the reason I ask is because East River Houses, which is directly on the other side, often has flooding. Like they had 3 of their 4 buildings were flooded with the last storm we had about a month ago. So is that area more vulnerable because of this gap in the elevation?
Well, there's the flood protection from the river is preventing storm surges, which isn't what caused the flooding in September.
No, that's rainfall, right?
Right. So I don't think there's a gap in the elevation of the flood protection from the river at all. It's all at 16.5 elevation above average sea level.
So here's another question. I went on the walkthrough that took part several months ago. And at that time, we noticed that there were rings, life-saving rings along the fence inside the work area, but not along the esplanade north of the work area. And I was told that's really an OSHA thing. It's really just to protect the workers. We had a young person die this weekend at 6th Street. Could have possibly been saved if there were rings there. What do you think? Is there a possibility that we will ever get some kind of life-saving ring there at this time when so many people are under stress?
So that would be up to parks to install those, I believe. Because along the construction site, they remove the barrier along the water. So it's throughout construction, there may not be something to prevent them from falling into the water. But I did hear about that. It was very devastating news.
Yeah,
but
it's tragic.
We can bring back to parks.
Yeah, please do, because too many times there's a copycat, right? Somebody else says, well, I can do it even if they could.
Right.
And I'm very concerned that we're going to lose another young person right there. And my last question today, I was bicycling. So I got on heading south at Montgomery Street. And I know that's right at the end of ESCR, but they're in the process of putting up a fence down the middle of the pedestrian pathway that separates the 2 bike lanes from South Street. And it's right in the middle of the pedestrian space, whereas it could easily have been moved over 2-3 feet and given pedestrians full access to that little island strip. That's a concern. I've complained several times about the cars continually parked underneath the viaduct there at 36, Pier 36. And just want to reiterate again that is public space. It's full of tourists. It's full of local people who are just trying to get to the water, trying to walk for health. That's what we all do in the neighborhood, right? But here's yet another squeeze that's making it even more difficult and dangerous there for people. So for health and safety reasons, can we adjust that fence and can we get those parked cars out of there?
So the fence is for BMCR, not for ESCR. But Trevor forwarded your email to us today about
Good.
it. So I'll work with the BMCR team to respond to you on that.
Thanks. And please move it. Don't just send me a note saying it's not possible, but because you'd be surprised how many people are out there day and night. And it really is quite dangerous for both the people on wheels and the people on foot.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, if we don't have any more questions on PA1, we can move on to PA2. So for PA2, this is the same information basically as last month. The only change is that the last two gates, gates 7 and 8, which are the ones that are down by the Con Ed facility, they're scheduled to be installed early next year instead of at the end of this year. And then this slide also not much has changed, except the Greenway and Park South of East 20th Street. They're still scheduled to reopen this year, just later this year once the plantings have been planted. And then late this year or early next year, depending on when they finish that. And then the Greenway connecting PA1 and PA2, we thought was going to open when the park reopened, but now DOT is managing a project surrounding repairing the sinkholes along the path. So it's now up to DOT when that path gets reopened, but we've been told it should reopen next year. And so those are the only things. Maybe I can quickly go through environmental and parallel conveyance, and then we'll do questions on PA2 and those three things. If that's okay. So
Michael? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Is that okay? All right, so these are the project area 1 air monitoring locations. They haven't changed since last month. And so here is the September update. So as you can see, the number of alerts has gone down. The frequency is decreasing, which is great. The highest number is still near that Montgomery Street to Jackson Street area, where we have the Pier 42 and the FDR all in the same place. But none of the project related alerts were longer than a half hour, or only a few of them were, I think one or two, and dust suppression techniques were applied every time it was determined to be on-site construction activities. Here are the monitoring locations for PA2, and we updated the map here to reflect the open area of the park and where the Greenway detour is. And so this is preliminary data for PA2. We just got the data from the contractor, and the PMCM team hasn't had a chance to go over it yet, but we still wanted to share the preliminary data with you all. And we'll be able to update it and post it to the website once it's finalized. This is a lead discovery notification and mitigation slide that we shared with elected officials. And we've updated it with some feedback from them. So it just gives an overview of the process for when we discover specifically lead in soil, so that the public can better understand the process for notification and then mitigation and subsequent notification about the completion of that work. And then lastly, parallel conveyance. So these are the same 6 locations. The only new work really is that they're starting sewer test pits, which is to locate the deep interceptor sewer that they will be creating new connections to, and adding the interceptor gate chamber 2. And then otherwise it's still mostly test pits, water main upgrades, and utility relocation. Here are some photos. So the left photos are Con Ed conduits being installed, and for the utility relocation aspect, which is moving those things out of the way so that they can get down to the sewers below or the water mains. There's a new hydrant on Gouverneur Slip East, and the last photo is a water main installation. on South Street, which was some work that was added by the Department of Environmental Protection. And that's all we have for those. So we can take questions. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Parker. So my question actually is about PA1, so I'm really sorry to make you backtrack.
That's okay.
But I just realized, so earlier today, I noticed that there is a sign by the Corlears Hook NYC ferry station saying that the station is going to be closed from October 30th to November 3rd. Is that related to work you guys are doing?
Corlears Hook Station closed. What were the dates again? October
30th to November 3rd.
So that's not related to our work.
Okay.
I'll
I'll reach out to them and ask them.
It could also be Pier 42. I know they had to close one entrance to theirs and they're getting closer and closer to opening, but I'm not positive, but I would check with Pier 42 and then also ask the ferry.
All right. Thanks, Parker.
Yeah, thank you.
Diane.
Hi, Parker. I too forgot one of my PA1 questions.
Yes.
So about the slope on the Esplanade, particularly at the embayments. I just want to understand because I run frequently in the park and I don't really run up and down a lot of hills.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to understand, will I still be able to run along the water in a relatively at grade? And then will that mean, like, is that 6-foot elevation, is that behind the seating? And then if you go in front of the seating, it's pretty much, on the same grade, or vice versa?
So it goes down along because part of it is that the Esplanade is higher up, and to get people closer to the water at the embayment, it dips down, but then it's more flat behind the seating.
Okay, so
But
if
it's sort of split. There's like there's more of the decline is at the bottom of the embayment, and then there's like less of an incline at the top, but they do split to create this 6-foot. It's not like fully a 6
Oh, I see. So both will have a change in elevation, but
Mhm.
most of the change in elevation will be that if you want to stay close to the water, you go down and then back up again.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you're going behind the seating, you'll go up a little bit and back down a little bit, but it won't be as much.
Correct.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Robin.
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me? I got funky headphones on and I'm outside.
Yes.
Hey, Parker.
Hey.
One thing that I was sick, I couldn't go on the walking tour, but one thing that was brought up, I don't know if it came up in conversation about the amount of gravel, versus the amount of sod and dirt that's being placed, and how are trees going to grow in that? There's a lot more gravel than we were understood to think as ground cover.
So the depth of the soil varies based on what is on top of it, but Diane asked a similar question, and I'm going to try and get more information about the type of soil for the different areas and the depth of soil. So we'll bring that back. Cool. Thank you.
Christine.
I can't hear you, Christine.
Thank you. Maybe I should unmute myself. So, yeah. Hi, Parker.
Hi.
Considering this is October and the year's almost out, I'm just wondering whether you have a sense yet when you will present the design for the compost yard. Because it was promised towards the end of the year, and we have 2 more meetings left, which is November and December. And then I would also love to just get more information about the status of the firewood house and the area around that.
Mm-hmm. So I don't have an update at this time, but I will bring that back and nudge DDC Design to reach out to you to provide an update.
I would appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you.
And I have one last question. You know, you're going back to get some info about the plantings and the soil, et cetera. I had asked, what is the percentage of turf versus turf, concrete, and actual green in the park?
Mhm.
Can you get those
Okay.
percentages, please?
All right, I will bring that back as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions?
Just interjecting here, turf, do you want to have a distinction between artificial turf and real turf?
Yes, thank you for that. I thought generally turf meant artificial turf. Like they put in Pier 42 that's already leaching into the river. So yes, I'm concerned about, you know, more plastics into the river, et cetera, as well as a playing surface that becomes very hot and a little bit more injuries for people versus where we can actually have real grass, real trees, and real concrete
Mhm. Yep, I'll bring that back.
/ asphalt. I mean, impervious surfaces. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? I don't see any. So thank you, Parker and Stephen.
Thank you guys so much.
So as usual, let's transition to the CAG only part of this meeting by taking a 2-minute break. We'll reconvene at 4:59. Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
Okay.
Hello.
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 Hey.
So, as always, we open it up to you guys to raise any questions, issues, things to discuss.
Well, where are we on the idea of meeting with elected officials? I know that some of our concerns have been addressed already. But I think we have new ones developing as this plan to open part of the southern section and close part of the northern section evolves. And I know that I don't think Damaris or any of her people are here today, but I know that there were still questions around the hiring.
Yeah, so with regard, I'd actually reached out to Damaris. She wasn't able to attend to ask if how things are going with regard to this next event and how they feel overall, if things are moving in a more positive direction. So I'm in conversation now with one of her colleagues. So we will report back because that was something we wanted to discuss today. Yeah, making sure that was, if that's moving all right. Do we still want to continue pursuing a meeting with the elected officials? Based off last month's meeting, and we were having a bit of a challenge trying to get a meeting scheduled. So yeah, I mean, this is the question. Is things are going well with hiring? We still know that also the scheduling has not been, or the communication around the scheduling hasn't been so great. Today was promising. So we just need to make sure that they continue to use that Gantt chart, even if things aren't changing, and using that as the preferred means for you all as far as getting timeline information. That was also another item that you all wanted to talk about. So yeah, I mean, that is a question for the group. Do you all want to resume our attempts to get an elected meeting and specifically highlighting this new information, and then maybe hiring, depending on what we hear back from goals and some other items?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely important to hear back from goals. It's great that joint event has been scheduled, but let's see how successful it is, because they're still not really hiring people who live here. If you look at the numbers they showed today, it's like 75% of the people working on this project are from outside the city. And that's where all of that money is going. And not into the hands of our local residents who need it. So I definitely think we should put a pin in that one and come back and check on it.
Wendy?
Oh, Robin was before me.
Oh, thank you, Robin.
Okay, also, I mean, I think at this point, it would be great to get some kind of a town hall, so people in the community know what's going on. Nobody really knows when this park is opening and opening. And a person who's involved, I know I've been very distracted with your father, but I look at this chart, I can't even figure out when it's open. So can we maybe get something like that to happen? Maybe we can have some electeds there, the community board can be there, both community boards, and really get some place to have an open forum where they can present those dates. That'd be great.
Okay, Wendy.
So on Monday night, I went to the DOT, it's commitment number 48, the question about decking of the drive. And would there be a study? And that was workshop 3, where ideas for all along the west side of the drive were presented. And they're conceptual for sure. But there was 2 of us there from the CAG. That's it, me and Trevor. I think that's all. And they're going to be doing another presentation for NYCHA members. And Kate was here earlier. Kate Shear is the person in charge from DOT. And I wrote her today to ask if CAG members could also be invited to that meeting, that it, because it's actually so important to many of our groups, what they're talking about on the west side of the drive. And there's 4 different proposals. And to me, some of them would be, are possibly going to be happening sooner rather than later, like putting a crosswalk across Houston all the way east. Pretty simple idea to keep people from trying to cross from the south side to the north side, put in the crosswalk. So, but there's other things that might be good for people who are so invested, like Michael, in, the edge right there. So I don't know if that's something that's of interest to other people here, but to me, it would be great if they didn't want to do a special CAG thing, to invite us to the last 1 or 2 events that they are going to be doing, which they generally don't announce except for a couple days ahead, if at all.
So just to clarify,
Are people
Wendy, so you asked Kate about this today, if the CAG could be
I
invited.
asked her today. I saw her. She was here briefly at the beginning of the meeting, and I thought maybe she was going to say something, but she didn't. And I know it's not actually ESCR, but it is a commitment for ESCR that it's in response to.
I would be interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So this is between 6th Street and Jackson is where they're working. It's really Montgomery, 6th Street and Montgomery, along the west side of the FDR.
Christine?
I think Robin had her hand up, but I have a quick question. After the walkthrough, you circulated an email and we started a document with sort of notes and concerns, and most of them, of course, were also brought up at this meeting. I'm just wondering, did you formally also create a document and send that to Desiree for answers?
No, we have not done that yet, but we can certainly do that.
No, well, which one are you referring to? Because there was a document that we did have that, basically broke out all of the individual commitment letter issues, or I'm sorry, the priority issues. Then we put the commitment letter within that to get updates. That document we did share with Desiree, and we did get responses to those, which we shared. I'm not sure I'm not sure if you're referring to the one that we generated for the, for the elected meeting.
I think that's what you're talking about. It was something that was sent right after the walkthrough to the people that went on the walkthrough, so that we can notate what the issues that we saw were and had questions about.
Yes, I just put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's an email from Paula on the 13th of October.
Oh, okay.
And then the number 2 post walkthrough questions, concerns, issues. And I think several people have put comments in there, and most of them bubbled up in our conversation today, but it would probably not hurt to also just formally put that in front of the team.
Definitely. Sorry, I was.
Got it.
It's okay.
Anyone else? Any other items to bring up? I have one, but I wanted to wait if anyone else doesn't. There were questions around our December meeting. Specifically, since there are quite a bit of holidays, as we all know, in December, we would have to move the meeting. So we are looking at either the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, December 18th, 19th, or 20th. So what we would like to do is basically see if we can get a consensus around an alternate date and time for December. If we're not able to, then DDC will just send us a written update like they did in August. So we will send that doodle out to you all shortly, but please fill it out as soon as you can. We're going to put a hard deadline on it just because we have to inform everyone of whether or not we're going to have that meeting in December, since we like to, put out the invites in advance. So yeah, we will send that to you all in a follow-up probably tomorrow. But please fill out that doodle when you can, and we're going to see what we can do about rescheduling so we don't have to resort to a written update for December.
What is the plan for November? Because there is that other little holiday.
We had already considered that. So our meeting is the 30th. So there's actually 5 Thursdays in the month. So that should also be, I usually send them in 3-month increments. So you should have that on your calendar for November 30th.
Yes. Okay, cool.
And then, again, but unless anyone anticipates any changes in their own schedules, that would preclude them from continuing. Since I do like to send them in 3-month increments, we would continue doing the meetings, the last, or I guess in this case, the 4th, depending on the month, the 4th Monday and 4th Thursday of every month. So I'll probably send out, once we figure out December, I will also then send a series out for January, February, and March, keeping the same date and time, unless people have some significant, there are enough people that come up and want a change to the meeting time. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
Well, I'm just still stuck on, we talked about meeting with council members back in August. And here it is October. Now we're talking about the end of the year. Any way we can work that out? I see that Council Member Rivera's office is here on the call. Maybe they could just join us for the December meeting.
That was something that was floated out. Actually, their office has been very responsive. It's just been a matter of we were trying to get all 3 council members together, or at least the representatives together. And then, as Diane mentioned, based off our last meeting, it seemed like we had made a little bit of progress on 2 of the 4 items, that we wanted to address. It looks like the other 2 items are slowly moving. We just want confirmation, at least on where things are with the hiring. We know it's still an area of concern because it's, there have been so many jobs that have been given to folks who are outside of New York City. So we wanted to get a more complete picture from Damaris at Goals to get a sense of how they feel things are going with the next hiring event. And I'm sure they've also provided feedback on other ways for them to improve local hiring. So I want to talk to them first to get a bit, so we can have a more complete picture to decide whether or not we want to move ahead or resume our attempts to meet with the elected officials.
I see. And, I don't know if any of you've gotten down to see the temporary artwork at Corlears that's getting removed November 15th. So it's hardly worth even mentioning, but the $40,000 went to an outside artist to put asphalt on the edge of the river is really very sad to me. That they couldn't have found a local artist, including somebody like the person who made the seals in the park. I'm afraid I don't know his name, or the labyrinth artist, things that were promised to be returned. And maybe they are going to be returned. I don't know. We haven't had an update on that. But it was just very sad to see how that, we're supposed to get some culture here. That it was, that it's 40 grand. That would have made an artist's year, for sure.
Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
What'd you say, Michael?
Motion to adjourn. Who has the gavel?
Oh,
Well, I'll second the motion.
Yay.
All right. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.